Hi BookTube, it's Gina. Happy Thursday. It's almost Friday. I can't wait. How are you? I am having one of those days today. Work's not going well. I trimmed my bangs and I cut them a little too short. So I thought, you know what? Always makes me feel better is to sit down and chat with you about books. So that's what I'm gonna do today. I thought what I would do is do a top 10 of 2022. This is the time of year we do that, right? We look back on the last year, talk about what we loved. I did have some books I didn't love so much last year. I'm not sure if I'll do a top low, what I didn't like. Sorry, I got a cat here. What I didn't like of 2022, maybe. I don't think I have 10. I had a few, but I probably won't do that. You know me, I like to focus on the positive things. So I'm going to talk to you about what I loved last year. I coincidentally had 11 five-star books, and 2 of them were Agatha Christie's, and so I just combined those into one. I picked one Agatha Christie. I did not include any rereads. If I had, you know that my beloved Winter Solstice would have made the list because I love that book and I did reread that this year. But these are all books that I read for the first time in 2022, although none of them were written in 2022, which doesn't surprise me and probably doesn't surprise you either. So let's start with my 2 favorite nonfiction books of the year. I don't read a ton of nonfiction, but this year I discovered Susan Branch, A Fine Romance, and I loved this book. This is Susan Branch. The subtitle is Falling in Love with the English Countryside, and that is what this book is all about. It is Susan Branch and her new husband spending some time tootling around the countryside in England. They first take a Cunard cruise ship across the Atlantic, which just sounds glorious to me. They cruise over to England, get a rental car, and then they just tootle around the countryside. And it is so good. So, so good. I absolutely loved it. They visit a lot of the sites that I would love to go to. It's got really nice pictures. I think Susan Branch took while she was there. That picture is, where are we? Are we at Jane Austen's home? No, that was Smalleth Place? I'm not sure, but it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. It's just as delightful as you expect it to be. I do find this writing a little bit challenging. I've got to put on my big readers so that I can read handwriting, but it's just, oh, it's so good. If you love the English countryside and you love reading about people exploring it for the first time, check out this book. It's so, so good. And then my next favorite nonfiction is Christmas with Rosamund Pilcher. This is a skinny little thing, but it was so good also. I read this last month, and this is personal stories about Rosamund Pilcher, about the way they spent their Christmas. She sadly is no longer with us. Talks about one of their visits to the Carbis Bay Hotel one year when they wanted to get away in Cornwall. Look at that, isn't it gorgeous? Talks about how they spend their Christmas dinner, decorating the tree, writing Christmas cards. Look at that. Don't you just love that face? And then it's got a wonderful little short story at the end that I loved. It was called Miss Cameron at Christmas, about a single woman who is getting up there in years, which you know I love, and she doesn't have a lot of family or friends. She finally sort of gets her own money, and some neighbors in a new home befriend her, and it's just fantastic. So if you have access to that story, I would definitely recommend it, and I love this book. This will be on my yearly Christmas TBR for the rest of my life. I absolutely loved it. Okay, then let's do, I have 4 that I do, are we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, I have 4 that I do not have physical copies of. Does this drive you guys crazy too? Do you want to have physical copies of all of your 5-star books for the year? I find myself really wanting to buy these, and I really don't need to. I read them all on my Kindle, and it was a wonderful reading experience. First one, The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy. I loved this book. I read this for the group read for Victober. Wonderful story. A little on the depressing side. I've talked about that in my Victober wrap-up probably. Thomas Hardy is not an optimist. He is definitely a pessimist, definitely sees the dark side of people, of their personalities, of society. And, you know, I love and live with and am married to a person like that. So I think I identify a little bit with Thomas Hardy. It was a wonderful, wonderful book. I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend. If you don't mind your stories on the, I don't even want to say it's depressing. It's not depressing. It is just very pessimistic outlook. The next one is Emily of Deep Valley. This is Maud Hart Lovelace in the Betsy Tacy world. Emily is sort of one of the side characters. So it's set in that same world, but Emily is not one of the main characters in the Betsy Tacy stories. But I loved Emily because she's a little bit less, you know, Betsy is a very, she's popular, everything goes well for her, her family lives in a big house, and Emily's character is a little bit, she struggles a little bit more, which I think I identified with a little bit and really, really enjoyed. Next is Near Neighbors by Molly Clavering. I read this, you know, I thought I read this a long time ago, but it's in my Goodreads as being read in January of 2022. Near Neighbors, it was, I read it on my Kindle. I'd love to get the Persephone edition of that, or if they have it. I don't even know if they have it actually. But Near Neighbors was another similar story to the one I was describing in here. An older lady finally sort of comes into some money and some independence and finds happiness and befriends the neighbors. That's basically it in a nutshell. But I loved it because it was just a very beautifully written story. Really sweet. I loved all the characters. Just really hit the spot for me. And then, let's see, was that Emily? Oh, Nemesis. The last one that I do not own is Nemesis. That is by Agatha Christie. It is the second in, it's not a duology, it's not a series, but it does share some characters with a Caribbean mystery. And so I loved it for that, but I just also, I love the way Miss Marple is portrayed in Nemesis. It was a lot of fun. So those two I'm sort of counting as one because I love them both. All right, and then I've got 4 here, hardcovers or physical copies. One's a hardcover. The first is Frederica by Georgette Heyer. I've not read a ton of Georgette Heyer, but what I have read, I've really enjoyed. And I love this one because Frederica is, I would say, not a typical romance heroine. She's fairly independent, becomes friends with this character, and, you know, romance sort of ensues. There was a couple things at the ending of this that I didn't really care for, but overall, I loved it. I loved the kids. There's some really funny kids in this book. And there's a hot air balloon, which, yes, is a plot point. But this was a really fun romance. Loved that. Next is Enchanted April, The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. Loved this book. Actually, I've been saying that a lot, haven't I? Loved this book, but it's true. I loved all of these. This is about 4 very different women who answer, 2 of the women answer an ad to rent a castle in Italy. They find 2 other women to go with them and share the costs, and they're very different. They've all got their own personal trials and tribulations that they're dealing with. They all want to kind of get away. And it just has a wonderful friendship, a wonderful path of self-discovery for all of the women. And I absolutely loved it. This is actually also a movie that I have to say I even like better than the book. But definitely check this out. Watch the movie if you haven't watched the movie. The movie is wonderful. And next, and I'm not going in any order, so this is not like my top number 2, but this is Greengates by RC Sherriff, in this beautiful Persephone edition. I've talked about this book a zillion times because I absolutely loved it, about a gentleman who is getting ready to retire and how he and his wife deal with it, don't deal with it, readjust to their new roles, and really thrive and find happiness in the end. So it's definitely one of my favorite books, one of my favorite Persephones, and I love R.C. Sherriff, and this is my favorite of his that I've read so far. And then lastly, and this is not my favorite, I didn't rank them according, but this is at the bottom of the pile because it was the biggest, The Paying Guest by Sarah Waters. Also just love this book. This is really different from the other books of hers that I've read in that it is a very heavily focused on characters. The first half is pretty much no plot, pure character, and then the second half is just pure plot. It takes off, it goes crazy, like Sarah Waters' books do, and it was tons of fun. I loved it, and I'm going to read another one of her books this year, The Night Watch, which I'm very excited about, and then I only have one more Sarah Waters Fingersmith, which I have not read yet. I think in one of my last videos I said The Night Watch was my last Sarah Waters. It's not. I still have to read Fingersmith. I can't believe I misspoke, and I have not read Fingersmith yet, so I'm really looking forward to that. But The Paying Guest was definitely on my top 10. So I'm so happy to share my pile with you. Let's make a little stack here. See if I can hold them up. Super fun. I had a great, fun, enjoyable reading year last year, and I was very, very happy to share it with you. Thanks for coming along with me for the fun ride, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.